This builds reliability and reduces confusion. Avoiding action weakens the mind. The longer you hesitate, the more space you give to doubt and fear. Indecision expands when it is left unchecked. Procrastination creates a mental fog that blocks clear thinking. The Stoics trained themselves to act without delay when they knew what was right. This training was rooted in preparation. By reflecting on values daily, they were ready when the moment arrived. They did not rely on impulse. They relied on principle. This form of decisiveness does not involve rushing. It is not about speed. It is about direction. It involves knowing what matters most and giving it your attention. It means cutting through distractions and excuses. You ask yourself, what is the essential task in front of me? What action reflects my values right now? You then take that step without argument. Over time, this practice becomes a habit of mind. You stop delaying. You move directly into what matters. Deliberate action gives your day structure. It turns time into progress. You stop drifting between distractions. You stop measuring your life by good intentions. You begin to see how much your life is shaped by what you actually do. You learn to trust yourself because you act on your priorities. You are no longer guessing or waiting. You are choosing. Each completed action becomes proof of your commitment. Thought without action remains incomplete. Understanding is only partial if it stays in the mind. The Stoic closes this gap. They take what they know and put it into motion. They do not expect perfection. They expect effort. They use each action as a way to reinforce clarity. Even mistakes are used for learning. In this way, action becomes a tool for growth. At the start of each day, write down 3 meaningful actions that align with your values. Do this before distractions begin. Choose actions that reflect integrity, courage, or service. Complete them with full attention. Avoid multitasking. Focus on one task at a time. When finished, take a moment to reflect. Ask, did I act with clarity? Did I meet resistance with resolve? Did I use my time with purpose? Over time, this habit will sharpen your focus and reinforce your sense of direction. It will build a rhythm of movement that supports both inner peace and visible progress. Chapter 8. Endurance is built, not borrowed. The Stoics understood that life involves discomfort, effort, and loss. They did not expect to escape these experiences. Instead, they trained to endure them well. Endurance was not seen as passive suffering. It was the conscious decision to remain steady in difficulty, to remain calm during pressure, and to maintain virtue even when comfort was absent. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that he was made for the work of life. When he encountered pain, fatigue, or criticism, he did not ask for escape. He asked how he could respond with strength. Epictetus told his students that the true test of philosophy is not found in the classroom, but in illness, hardship, and conflict. These are the moments when your training shows. Endurance begins with preparation. The Stoic trains the mind daily by reflecting on potential setbacks and building internal stability. They expect friction. They know that people may behave poorly, that plans may change, that the body may weaken. Because they have prepared for these facts, they are not caught off guard. Their expectations are aligned with reality. This kind of mental readiness reduces unnecessary suffering. Pain may be present, but panic is not. Difficulty may arise, but despair is avoided. The Stoic separates what hurts from what harms. Pain is natural and often unavoidable. Harm is when you allow pain to distort your judgment, to break your principles, or to turn you against reason. This distinction gives you space to respond. Endurance is also built through voluntary discomfort. The Stoics practiced going without things they normally enjoyed. They walked in the cold. They ate simple food. They imagined loss. These exercises were not extreme. They were reminders. Reminders that comfort is a condition, not a guarantee. Reminders that your mind must remain steady even when your surroundings are not each time. You choose patience over complaint. You reinforce your strength. You teach your mind to remain composed when events are unfavorable. When discomfort arises and you choose not to react with frustration, you strengthen your internal discipline. Each moment you practice steadiness adds a layer to your resilience. You stop responding to every inconvenience. You start observing your response and adjusting it to reflect control. Over time, this becomes a habit. It becomes part of who you are. You develop the ability to remain level-headed in situations that once triggered anxiety or irritation. Each time you remain focused under pressure, you train your attention. Instead of being pulled by distraction or emotion, you stay centered. This builds confidence. You learn that you can carry pressure without collapse. You become someone who does not need conditions to be easy to act with clarity. This stability shows in your behavior. You are consistent in your decisions, measured in your reactions, and dependable in your conduct. These changes are quiet, but they accumulate. They prepare you for the unexpected. They make you stronger not through theory, but through repeated action. This process is gradual. It does not come from grand gestures. It comes from daily repetition. You learn to carry more weight by carrying a little more each day. You stop seeking comfort as a constant state. You begin to value the strength that comes from holding your ground. Endurance is developed this way by small decisions, consistent effort, and honest reflection. You do not need ideal circumstances to become stronger. You need to commit to the process of improvement. The Stoic treats endurance as a way of life. It is not something to call upon only in crisis. It is something to practice in routine moments. Endurance is built through the choice to face discomfort when avoidance would be easier. It is built when you wake early to begin your day with discipline. It is built when you keep going even when you feel tired. It is built when you choose to be silent rather than argue unnecessarily. These choices condition the mind to remain stable and the body to follow with discipline. Choose one minor discomfort to endure each day. It could be waking earlier, working in silence, morning push-ups and sit-ups, walking without distraction, or delaying gratification. Keep it simple and intentional. These acts train your mental posture. They remind you that discomfort is not an emergency. They teach you how to remain clear under strain. After each exercise, reflect briefly. Ask, was I reactive or steady? Did I return to my breath when tempted to quit? Did I remain focused? Notice how the experience influenced your thinking. Observe whether your perspective became sharper or your emotions more manageable. These reflections help you measure your progress and understand where to improve. This practice builds a mindset capable of meeting difficulty without fear, fatigue without panic, and pressure without collapse. Chapter 9. Control your inner dialogue. The Stoics placed great importance on the quality of your inner dialogue. The way you speak to yourself shapes your emotions, your clarity, and your strength. Every day, thoughts pass through the mind, some helpful, some misleading. The Stoic trains to distinguish between them. They learn to speak to themselves with accuracy, with discipline, and with purpose. Epictetus advised his students to be aware of the narratives they create. If you tell yourself that something is unbearable, it becomes so. If you tell yourself that you cannot handle discomfort, you will resist growth. The Stoic pays close attention to the words they use in silence. This self-talk becomes the foundation of how they see the world and how they meet it. Language matters. The words you use in your internal dialogue affect your interpretation of events. When you describe a delay as a disaster or a mistake as a failure, you add unnecessary emotional weight. This shapes your response. You begin to feel overwhelmed not because the event is severe, but because your language makes it feel that way. The Stoic avoids this distortion. They name things accurately. They recognize the difference between what is difficult and what is destructive. They resist using language that feeds helplessness or panic. Calling something a catastrophe when it is only inconvenient changes how you feel and how you act. A traffic jam becomes a crisis. A missed opportunity becomes a loss of purpose. These reactions come from words, not facts. Saying you are trapped when you are simply challenged removes your sense of choice. It shuts down your ability to respond with clarity. The Stoic trains to use words that reflect the situation honestly. This protects their emotional state and improves their judgment. Clear thinking depends on clear language. Vague or exaggerated terms create confusion. The mind follows the story it tells. If that story is irrational, the emotions and actions that follow will also be irrational. The Stoic corrects the story early. When a stressful thought appears, they pause. They replace exaggeration with fact. They examine assumptions. They ask if the thought reflects reason or impulse. They do not speak to themselves with flattery or avoidance. They aim for precision. This practice requires daily effort. You must notice how you speak to yourself. You must pause before repeating patterns that lead to stress or discouragement. When a reaction appears, blame, fear, self-pity, you examine its source. You ask, what am I assuming? What am I believing? What am I exaggerating? You then remove what is false and return to what is solid. This creates a stable internal posture. You do not erase the mind's activity. You train it through consistent observation and correction. You redirect it toward thoughts that support reason, discipline, and meaningful action. The mind will continue to generate thoughts, both useful and distracting. The Stoic does not expect silence. They expect self-command. This means recognizing when thoughts are helpful and when they are harmful. It means deciding which thoughts deserve your attention. When your inner dialogue reflects clear values, it gives you direction. It helps you stay steady during challenge and focused during uncertainty. Thoughts based on fear, imitation, or habit often create confusion. They repeat patterns you did not choose. They exaggerate problems, distort outcomes, and lead you away from clarity. The Stoic observes these thoughts early. They do not allow them to shape the entire emotional response. They intervene at the beginning. They ask whether a thought is useful, whether it is based in reason, and whether it aligns with their values. This kind of mental filtration keeps the mind focused on reality and grounded in what matters. This mental training builds a habit. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes. The mind begins to adopt a more rational tone. It no longer rushes into conclusions. It becomes a reliable inner guide. When stress arises, you pause and ask precise questions. You review the situation rather than react to it. When a negative pattern begins to form, you notice it. You step back. You look for your role, your responsibility, and your next action. This interrupts confusion. It gives space to reason. The mind stops fueling fear, anger, or pride and begins to support stability. Each correction strengthens your judgment. Each moment of awareness helps build emotional discipline. Over time, this becomes your default. You meet frustration with thought. You meet delay with patience. You meet insult with calm. These shifts come from consistent work, not from one insight, but from hundreds of small adjustments. These shifts turn your mind into a place of structure and support. You begin to develop a calm and ordered tone in your inner speech. You do not rely on harsh words to motivate yourself. You do not speak in extremes. You speak to yourself the way a trained Stoic would, clearly, briefly, and accurately. You stop reinforcing self-pity. You stop repeating stories that weaken your capacity to act. You begin to speak with the same discipline that you bring to your outer life. You move toward descriptions that remind you of your principles. You think in terms of roles and duties rather than feelings and assumptions. You begin to ask, what does this moment require? What part of this can I control? How can I act with integrity right now? This clarity helps you reduce internal conflict. You stop amplifying difficulties with your words. You stop multiplying pain through judgment. You stay with the facts and make your next move with purpose through this disciplined inner dialogue. You become more consistent. You do not depend on the world to calm your thoughts. You guide them yourself. That stability grows each time you return to reason. The clearer your internal voice becomes, the more effectively you live. The world remains unpredictable, but your inner life becomes steady. That steadiness becomes a lasting form of strength. Throughout your day, take note of your self-talk. Write down one moment when your thoughts helped you act wisely and one moment when they led you toward fear or anger. Study both. What belief was behind each one? Practice replacing harmful patterns with neutral, clear language. Repeat this until clarity becomes natural. This will improve your stability and sharpen your perception. Chapter 10. Align your life with your principles. The Stoics believed that happiness is not the result of external success, but of internal alignment. When your actions, thoughts, and values move in the same direction, you create a strong foundation. Without this alignment, even achievement can feel hollow. The mind senses conflict when it speaks one thing and does another. This weakens both your confidence and your peace. To live well, you must first know your principles. These are not abstract ideas. They are practical standards that guide how you act, how you speak, and how you make decisions. Courage, temperance, justice, and wisdom form the base of Stoic virtue. These principles are not dependent on situation or mood. They apply in every condition. The Stoic examines each situation and asks which principle applies here. What does virtue look like in this context? When your life is aligned with these values, your choices become simpler. You stop chasing approval. You stop reacting from emotion. You begin to respond from clarity. This removes many sources of stress. You know your duty. You know your role. You carry it out with focus. You measure success by how well your actions reflect your values, not by outcomes beyond your control. Living this way requires effort. You must reflect often. You must pause and examine whether your behavior reflects your beliefs. This is the practice of self-accountability. The Stoics recommended evening reflection for this reason. At the end of each day, they reviewed their actions looking for moments of weakness, inconsistency, or virtue. This reflection was not about guilt. It was about improvement. When you live according to principle, your energy is conserved. You stop pretending. You stop changing your behavior to match shifting opinions. You become dependable to yourself and to others. Your reputation builds itself through repetition. You become someone others can rely on. You become someone who can rely on yourself. Choose one core principle you want to embody this week. Write it down each morning. Before each decision, ask yourself if it supports that principle. At night, review your actions through that lens. Was your behavior aligned? Where did you stray? How can you adjust? Repeat this with consistency. Over time, your life will reflect your values more fully, and that alignment will give you a deeper and more lasting sense of happiness.